Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
The cab driver has his own way of thinking. It is more simple than other jobs. From his high, moving seat in his cab, he looks at other people as if they are just moving objects. He only cares about them when they need a ride. He is the driver, and you are the passenger. Whether you are a president or a poor person, to the cab driver, you are just a fare. He picks you up, cracks his whip, makes you bounce around, and then drops you off. When it is time to pay, if you know the correct fare, he looks down on you. If you forget your wallet, you will understand true anger. It is not a crazy idea that the cab driver's simple way of thinking comes from his cab's special design. The driver sits high up like a king on a throne, controlling your journey with two leather straps. Helpless and stuck, you sit like a toy in a box. You, who are usually treated with respect, must speak up through a small window to tell him where to go. In the cab, you are not even a person. You are just cargo. You are like goods on a ship, and the driver knows the streets like the back of his hand. One night, there was a party in the big brick apartment building next to McGarry's family cafe. The noise came from the Walsh family's apartment. The sidewalk was full of neighbors who made way now and then for people bringing supplies from McGarry's for the party. The neighbors were talking about Nora Walsh getting married. Soon, the people from the party came out to the sidewalk. The uninvited guests joined them, and there were happy cries, congratulations, laughter, and other noises from the party. Close to the curb stood Jerry O'Donovan's cab. People called Jerry Nighthawk, but no cleaner or nicer cab than his ever carried fancy people or flowers. And Jerry's horse. It was well fed and looked strong. Even old ladies who usually complain would have smiled to see it. Among the moving, loud, and lively crowd, you could see Jerry's tall hat, worn out by many years of wind and rain, his nose, red and big, hit by playful rich kids and stubborn passengers, and his green coat with brass buttons, liked by people near McGarry's. It was clear that Jerry was not just driving his cab, but also carrying a load of drinks. A young boy in the crowd even said, "Jerry is drunk." From the crowd or the small group of people walking by, a young woman came to the cab. Jerry saw her with his sharp eyes. He moved quickly to the cab, pushing aside 3 or 4 people, almost falling himself, but he grabbed a water plug and stayed on his feet. Like a sailor climbing in a storm, Jerry got up to his driver's seat. Once he was there, the drinks from McGarry's couldn't bother him. He moved up and down in his seat like he was on a boat, as safe as a worker on a tall building. "Get in, lady," said Jerry, getting ready to drive. The young woman got into the cab. The doors closed with a loud noise. Jerry's whip snapped in the air, the crowd moved away, and the nice cab drove quickly across town. When the fast horse slowed down a bit, Jerry opened the small window in the cab and asked loudly, trying to be nice, "Where do you want to go?" "Anywhere you want," said the woman, happily. She wants to ride for fun, thought Jerry. And then he suggested, "Let's go around the park, lady. It will be nice and cool." "Sure, sounds good," said the passenger, happily. The cab headed for Fifth Avenue and went fast up the perfect street. Jerry bounced and moved in his seat. The strong drinks from McGarry's made his head feel funny. He sang an old song and waved his whip like a music conductor. Inside the cab, the passenger sat up straight on the cushions, looking left and right at the lights and houses. Even in the dark cab, her eyes shone like stars at twilight. When they reached 59th Street, Jerry's head was moving up and down, and his reins were loose. But his horse turned into the park gate and began the usual night ride. The passenger leaned back, very happy, and breathed in the fresh smells of grass, leaves, and flowers. The smart horse, knowing the way, moved at a steady pace and kept to the right side of the road. Jerry, despite feeling more and more sleepy, raised the small window again and asked the question that cab drivers ask in the park. "Want to stop at the casino, lady? Get some refreshments and listen to the music." Everyone stops there. "I think that would be nice," said the passenger. They stopped quickly at the casino entrance. The cab doors flew open. The passenger stepped directly onto the floor. She was immediately surrounded by beautiful music and bright lights and colors. Someone gave her a little square card with the number 34 on it. She looked around and saw her cab 20 yards away, already lined up with other carriages, cabs, and cars. Then a man in a fancy shirt walked backward in front of her, and soon she was sitting at a small table next to a railing with a climbing flower. It felt like an invitation to buy something. She looked at the small coins in her thin purse and decided she had enough to order a glass of beer. She sat there, enjoying everything, the new colors, new shapes, like being in a fairy palace in a magic forest. At 50 tables, princes and queens, dressed in all the silks and jewels of the world, sat. Sometimes, one of them would look curiously at Jerry's passenger. They saw a simple woman in a pink silk dress and a plain face with a look of love for life that the queens wished they had. 2 hours passed. The royals left their outdoor seats and drove away in their fancy cars. The music was put away in wooden and leather cases. Waiters took away tablecloths near the woman sitting almost alone. Jerry's passenger stood up and held out her numbered card. "Is there anything coming on the ticket?" she asked. A waiter told her it was her cab check, and she should give it to the man at the entrance. This man took it and called the number. Only 3 cabs were in line. The driver of one went and woke up Jerry, who was asleep in his cab. Jerry got up, climbed to his seat, and drove his cab to the front. His passenger got in, and the cab quickly went into the cool park, taking the shortest way home. At the park gate, Jerry suddenly became suspicious. A few thoughts came to his mind. He stopped his horse, opened the small window, and said loudly, "I need to see $4 before going any further on the trip. Do you have the money?" $4. The passenger laughed softly. "Oh no, I only have a few pennies and a dime or two." Jerry closed the small window and made his horse go faster. The sound of the horse's hooves was loud, but it didn't cover Jerry's angry words. He shouted bad words at the stars in the sky. He hit passing vehicles with his whip. He cursed loudly along the streets. A late truck driver, slowly going home, heard him and felt embarrassed. But Jerry knew what to do and hurried to his destination. He stopped at a house with green lights beside the steps. He opened the cab doors wide and stumbled heavily to the ground. "Come on, you," he said roughly. His passenger got out with a dreamy smile still on her plain face. Jerry took her by the arm and led her into the police station. A gray-mustached sergeant looked sharply across the desk. He and Jerry knew each other. "Sergeant," Jerry began in his old, rough, complaining voice. "I've got a passenger here that—" Jerry paused. He wiped his forehead with a red hand. The fog in his mind from McGarry's drinks was starting to clear away. "A passenger, Sergeant," he continued with a grin, "that I want to introduce to you. It's my wife that I married at Old Man Walsh's tonight. And we had a devil of a time, it's true. Shake hands with the sergeant, Nora, and we'll be off home." Before getting into the cab, Nora sighed deeply. "I've had such a nice time, Jerry," she said.